And so you need to have both sides. You need to have the sciences. You also need to have the arts. You need to have the liberal arts. You need to read the classics, and they have to go together. And you have to do both of them. You're a dual being. You're a brain, but you're also a heart. So you need to educate your mind, but you also need to educate your heart. And both of those facets of our human being are very critical, important to our success and in our education. And so that's really the dilemma that we face. If we go from a Thomas Jefferson level education where we're reading the great classics down to Horace Mann, what Horace Mann did is he actually came up with this concept of textbooks. So a textbook is where you grab snippets of all different books in different fields of learning and you compile them all into one book. Now, textbooks in a lot of ways are a good innovation, right? They're very efficient. You can get a lot of information really quickly. It's cheap, it's cost effective. If you're running a school system, you can get a lot of books for a lot of students and they can get a lot of different information real fast, right? Seems to make sense, right? The challenge is textbooks are a slippery slope and over time they can devolve instead of evolving. Sometimes they evolve. They should evolve. As more knowledge is gained, they get added to, which is a benefit of a textbook is you can get a broad swath of a subject or a topic. A textbook's really good at giving you a breadth from a lot of different authors. And so it helps with that. It can speed up your education per se. So textbooks can have a lot of benefits for sure. And a lot of my education has been through textbooks. I went through public school systems and my bachelor's degree when I was doing that, pretty much the bulk of it was textbooks. I spent a lot of time reading textbooks. But I realized that something was missing from my education. And I realized that something was lacking. And what it was I just wasn't reading the full works of these great authors, these great writers. And regardless of what field it is, it could be in any field. It could be math or science. It could be in the arts. It could be in literature. It could be in philosophy. It could be in the languages, whatever it is. Read the best authors in those fields and read their original works. There's just no replacement for that. There's just not. Okay, so I'm going to share a few more books with you. So I've got some really old books here. So this is an old textbook. This one is about 95 years old. It's called The Magic Garden. It has pictures. These are for younger children, and it's got stories in it, and they give you little snippets. But the interesting thing is I look through these books. They teach morality. They teach right and wrong. It's a reminder that these books came from a different era in American history. Because a lot of the morality that we have today does not fit in these textbooks anymore. It's outside of these textbooks. And the cardinal virtues, all of the great virtues, are taught in these books, just very beautifully. So I'm going to share another one here. This one is Reading and Living, Book 1. So this is the first in the series of a textbook. Heel and Lyman is the authors on it, but just has some literature in it for reading. That's kind of interesting. There's a poem right here in the front, and it says, Making Homes. Better than gold is a peaceful home, where all the fireside characters come, the shrine of love, the heaven of life, hallowed by mother, sister, or wife. However humble the home may be, or tried with sorrow by heaven's decree, the blessings that never were bought or sold, and center there are better than gold. Abram Joseph Ryan. So right out of the gate in this book, it's talking about the importance of the home and of families and of mothers and of sisters and brothers. You won't ever find anything like this in a modern textbook. And if you do, it's been specially curated that way. And you're probably in a special charter school or private school. But you wouldn't find something like this in a modern public school. And there's even this beautiful little picture in here of the Cratchit family from Charles Dickens with Tiny Tim and their Christmas goose. I guess she's pulling out the plum pudding. So there's this picture of Mrs. Cratchit with the plum pudding. I don't know if you can see that or not. But so, I mean, the morality in here is just really powerful. But it's a textbook, and it's a sampler. It's a textbook sampler for using in grammar school. And this one, this book is from 1924, printed in the United States of America, 1924. So this was printed during the Roaring '20s. Right here, textbook. Still had morality in it in the Roaring '20s. And the Roaring '20s were known for producing a lot of wickedness. But yet, the majority of Americans were being taught morality in the school system. Even though Horace Mann had already started the process of removing it out of the school system, it was still there for the majority of Americans. It was more advanced in states like Massachusetts versus, we'll say, Missouri or Nebraska, right? Okay, so there's that book. Here's another one. This one's The Natural Method Readers, a fifth reader. So basically would say like a fifth grade reader today. So this very old book is starting to fall apart here. But once again, the stories in here are just inspiring. They're uplifting. And like, here's this picture of George Washington talking to these two young children. It's talking about a story with George Washington, and they're painting George Washington as a hero. And in today's literature, everyone's questioning George Washington, the great man of integrity that built America. Everyone's questioning his integrity. And, a lot of people even spit on the face of George Washington today and say he's an awful man for whatever reason they have. They list off many of them. And, they forget that he's the man that built the country that gave freedom and liberty and happiness to all, even if it took time for that to occur for everyone. He established the rules and the laws and fought the battle that made that happen. So we can't forget that. And this textbook doesn't forget that. In this textbook, it's old. It's copyright 1918. So it's very old. It's falling apart here. Some of the pages are becoming dust. But it's an American textbook from 1918. And it holds the founding fathers up as heroes who did the right thing and who wanted everyone to be happy and have freedom and who wanted people to be honest and have integrity. Just the textbooks are just so different from back then compared to today. Here's another one. And some of these books are actually from my great uncle, Roy Perry. And so this one actually has his name in the front of it and the school that he went to, Brigham Young Academy in Utah. But this one's physical geography. It's a geography book. And this one's old too. It's over, about 125 years old. And some of the information in here is a little antiquated, but most of it's dead on accurate and still relevant today. But just a very beautiful, charming little book, but old. So here's another one. This is the oldest one I have here. So this is a Webster's dictionary, Webster's handy dictionary, and it's illustrated. So it's meant for children in school. But children's school actually had dictionaries back then in those days. And it seems like we don't use dictionaries in schools anymore. We don't look up words. We don't know what their meanings are anymore. And this book the pages are almost literally going to dust and the binding and the glue on it's going to dust. But you can see it's kind of deteriorating. And it's beautifully embossed. It's got beautiful embossment on it. But this book it looks like it's from 1864. There's the copyright on it. So, and my uncle's he's written his name on there a few times, Roy Perry. So Webster's International Dictionary, you can see just a few illustrations in it, but a beautiful little book. I love dictionaries. I think it's so important for us to understand the words that we use and know their meanings. And we just don't do that in our education today. Here's another one. So this is a math book, Hamilton's Essentials Arithmetic, first book. So it's your first math book. So there's problems in it. There's explanations. There's story problems. There's practice. There's oral and written work. They're learning fractions in here, division, all of your math, your arithmetic, and another beautiful little book. Little textbook. Certainly a lot different than the ones you'll find today on math. So the little jaunt through history there with some of our textbooks. So the point I want to make here is that textbooks were efficient and they allowed the masses to gain more education. So I think that's a really good thing. I wouldn't dispute that at all. The challenge is that textbooks today have gotten further and further away from morality and from the original sources and from the original authors and the original thinkers, the original scientists. And so a lot of times students are very far disconnected from the reality of those great thinkers and those great scientists and the great ideas that they had. And it's just presented to them as plain, boring information. And a lot of students just kill over when they read it or they see it in the textbook. So I'm going to give you a couple examples here of modern textbooks, some of them which are pretty good and pretty helpful, but we've come a long ways. So this is actually a college level textbook. This is Geographical Information Systems, and it just goes through a very systematic approach to laying out information. And you can see the pictures, and then the author just basically tells you what you need to know. He doesn't bother telling you about who came up with that idea and why they came up with it. There's some pretty good graphics in this book, which can be helpful. And so textbooks can serve a really great purpose, right? But they're limited in their scope and their ability to inspire the human mind and to inspire the human heart and to teach morality. And sometimes that's not the purpose of the textbook, obviously, right? With GIS, the purpose is to help train people use technology and satellites to be able to map out the earth and to make decisions off of those maps, right? This one's an American Heritage reader. and it basically has a sample of a lot of different writings from American history. So that's a little bit of a jaunt through history there, from older to newer. I found one more here. This sitting here on my desk. I've got more, but this one's kind of interesting. This one's from the 1950s, and it's called "The Elements of Business Training." So, we're starting to see the rise of business books in schools, and this is a higher level class. Once again, this is my uncle's book, right? And I'm not sure how old he was when he had this. I'm not sure if he was in college at this point or if he was still in high school. I'm not sure, but like, it talks about making payments and writing checks. How to do, how to run a bank ledger, things like that. It's just fascinating, and talking about different types of ownership. Anyways, we're much more sophisticated in our business knowledge today, but really, there's a whole section here on banking. It's really interesting. But I think one of the things that we miss out on in today's society is that none of us read the ancient books anymore. None of us read the classic books. None of us read the modern classics, the great books of our nation anymore. And it's really kind of sad.